Hey everyone, and welcome back. So in the last video, we had covered on how to create a BillQuick database or company file. If you didn't see that video, make sure you go and check it out in the links below, and maybe even in the cards above if you're on YouTube. So now we're going to need to start creating what we call our master data, and talking about how to create that master data and what it is. So in this video particularly, we're going to start off with what we call the employees. Now, I'm going to kind of show you the general workflow real fast throughout the program so you understand the actual workflow that you should be also following when you're going up and setting up data. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the menu bars at the top here. Now there's 1,000 ways to do this. You can click on the company thing, and from the company we can kind of see a little bit of workflow here visually. Then we can click on a different navigator, and going back you can see all my open screens are open as tabs, kind of like in an internet browser such as Chrome or Firefox or something like that, Internet Explorer. They all open up tabs now at the top for all the different websites you're at. So the same is in BillQuick. You'll be seeing those tabs being open at the top for any of the screens that you currently have open right now. So at the top here we can see that we have all these drop downs, and in reality they're kind of already set up in chronological order for you, okay? But what I'm going to kind of do is try to tailor that a little bit for you to kind of give you an ideology, and maybe you want to go and jot some of this stuff down when I go through it. Now remember, this is a video, so I am going fairly quickly, and so because you can always rewind this video and play it back or pause it if you need to catch up. So under the view drop down is kind of where everything all starts, okay? And you can see we filled out our company info in the previous video when we first created our company file. And you can see we kind of just going down the list here: employees, then clients, and activity codes, and expense codes, then service fee schedules, expense fee schedules, and vendors, client contacts, and manage attachments. Now, manage attachments, I don't even know why it's here. It should be in a completely different drop down in my opinion. But I kind of understand why they threw it in there. I mean, to me, it should just go down somewhere in these guys here. These are kind of like miscellaneous. So, but in general, 2 through, I would say 7 are pretty much in order. I think 8 should come, somewhere around after 2, around 2 or 3. So, basically, we're going to go down the list in this order, because if you think about it, you can't have clients before you have employees in a company. It's just not possible, right? So you're going to be creating employees before you create your clients. Now, you can't have projects in your company before you have employees either, because you have to have employees to work on the projects, manage the projects, etc. So then you can have clients or whatever, and you can't have a project before you have an activity code or work code or task code or whatever you want to call it, the code that represents what you're doing while you perform your work, because that's what you're telling the project you're going to do. So you have already decided, lined out, contracted, and everything else, the services you will be performing for that project. So you're going to need to have those codes first. And then service fee schedules and expense codes are the same thing. It's just the expense side. And service fee schedules, obviously you can't have it, you need to define that rate before you finalize the contract anyways. This is kind of like rate schedules, like rate cards, where you're defining a pre-defined rate before you actually go ahead and put in time against the project, so that way you know when you put that time against that project that it was done. I mean, it's going to be the correct rate. You don't have to go back in and mess things around. So, and obviously vendors, so that's why I understand they put it here. You could do it before a project or after a project. You may start it as your own company and then realize the project in the end needed a special service and you need to hire out a vendor. So I mean, I guess technically vendors is placed okay. So, and then client contacts is just kind of like a little, if you want to call it, miniature address book to kind of see for the client and their projects that are for the client, so you can kind of know who to contact on each project. We'll get into that later. So, but you can see all that you have to have before you can start creating projects. You have to have projects before you can start putting in time and expense, and you got to have your time and expense before you can do any kind of your billing, and you have to have all of this before you can do any kind of reporting on it. So you can see both vertically and horizontally, these menus are kind of already chronologically set up for you. Okay? So in my opinion, the order you should go in is a little bit different. In my opinion, I think you should do employees first, vendors second, clients third, activity codes and expense codes fourth, and rate cards last. And then projects, and then do your time and expense. Now, with that being said, if you have an already existing database such as QuickBooks or something like that, do not start filling this information out, okay? Because a lot of this information will come from QuickBooks, okay? Please do not start filling this information out, or you will duplicate things when it comes over from QuickBooks, and you're just going to have yourself a mess. So let's go ahead and click on employees and say you're running for the first time. As I told you in the previous video, when creating a database, we are not going to be running these wizards. We are going to do it from scratch so you understand exactly what you're doing. So I'm going to say no. And you can see here that it brought me to a blank screen with some fields on the right and like a list that's kind of grayed out on the left right now. So it's asking me for an employee ID, a first name, a last name, and a bunch of information about the employee, general information. Then we have multiple screens within the screen. Remember, these are all your screens that are open. And on each screen, so in this case the employee screen, we also have little miniature screens within that, or tabs as we call them, inside of it for different things as well. So we're going to go ahead and cover the general tab, we're going to go ahead and cover the rate tab, and we'll dive a little bit into the detailed tab, and that's what we're going to cover in this video. So employee ID, what is it, how to use it? Completely up to you. You can put whatever you want in here. You could put 123. If 123 represents Bob Smith, then by all means put 123. For a lot larger companies, they'll use employee numbers in here because they've already have an employee number system normally at that point. But if you're a smaller company, maybe just initials like Bob Smith, or maybe first initial last name. Completely up to you. Make up your own scheme. Do it how you like. Okay? Maybe you want to put the first name and last name in there. Now some key points here. On certain invoices that are lined out, detailed, like for example hourly invoices, the employee ID does show up. So, and you can always modify that with a custom invoice or whatever. But by default in the system, on certain lined out invoices, detailed invoices, the employee ID does show up. So I would highly recommend, if you have a previous system that you were using that, when you did an hourly invoice and you liked how it was lined out and it used the initials of the employee, then you use the initials of the employee here. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and put BS for now for Bob Smith. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to tab on through and put Bob and Smith. Now, all the social security information, all that is not required. You don't have to put any of that. You don't have to put any of this in here. The only fields that are required is, if you can see here closely, the color is blue. These are the fields that are actually required to be able to submit and save this employee. So I'm just going to go through and just do a couple things here. The department is and title and manager is dynamic. But department and title are what they call dynamic compound drop-downs. And what does that mean? It means if there is something there when you hit the drop-down from a previous employee, it will show that in the drop-down. But if you want something new, all you have to do is type it in. So let's say Bob is part of the management team. Okay, management department. And his title is senior manager. Okay. And there is no other employee, so I can't select a manager, So we're going to go ahead. He can submit to anybody. His role is default for now. Security is default. I can select whatever other roles in security that is just simply in the system. But we're going to cover that in a much more in-depth video later on. So we're just going to go and skip over it for now. The login, we'll just use the login of BS, the same as in his ID. And if you skip that and you hit save, it'll just default to whatever the ID is as well. So remember that. We'll go ahead and continue down. We got the default groups and groups. We'll explain what those are used for later. We'll fill in the address, 123 Fake Street in Torrance, California, 90505. All right. We're going to skip on over to the rate tab here. And you're going to see that we have a bill rate, a pay rate, an overtime bill rate, an overtime pay rate, and an overhead multiplier. Okay? So, to make it simple, you're not going to understand why I'm telling you this, but I will explain it in depth in another video with the rate cards and service fee schedules as we talked about before. You will not understand why I'm telling you to do this until I go through that video. So please bear with me and actually try to use my expertise here. And what we're going to do is we're simply going to put $1 into this. No more, no less, just simply $1 for the overtime bill rate, overtime pay rate. In the, overtime bill rate and regular bill rate. In the pay rate, we're going to put whatever we pay this employee. Now, this is the raw payment, okay? Not, after you do the 7.5% federal, your taxes, all your FICA, all that. No, this is your raw payment that you pay him an hour. What you've agreed to pay that person an hour, okay? So let's say I decide to pay Bob $15 an hour, okay? He's senior management. Okay, we'll give him $35. Okay? Overhead multiplier. Now, if you do not know how to create your overhead multiplier, we have a resource, for an Excel worksheet that will help you create that overhead multiplier. We will create a separate video to help you do that later on, but we have an Excel worksheet on our website. Please make sure you go there, www.bqeconsulting.com, and make sure you pick up that Excel worksheet, and we will explain on how to do it later on. If you're on YouTube, that link will be in the video description below. Okay? But for example, we're just going to go ahead and throw 1/2 multiplier in there and call it good. Now, all of this other information, salary and all this other, completely optional, is not used in the system whatsoever. You can put whatever you want there, unless you're using the accounting function. Even in the accounting functions, I don't even think this stuff takes place. The only thing that really takes place in here is these dates. Important date, basically, is the only thing that takes place, and it remind me about the important date. So what people will do is they'll put the birth date in there, for example, and then remind them about that. Or they'll go ahead and put in the reminder section a date and reminder for, and then you can select a certain employee and hit send a reminder message. If you're trying to tell someone like an HR, hey, Bob's birthday is on the 15th, make sure you do something for him. So that's pretty much all. These other fields are completely optional. Expense currency is a good thing if you're doing like multi-international things going on right now, and they spend money in a different currency than you guys do as a company. So the detail tab, we have all this other general information that is, again, completely whatever you want to do. Your standard hours you should put in there, day per week. It does help the simple time card out to make it look a little bit prettier, so definitely go ahead and make sure you do that. The rest of it, again, permissible hours per year, not per month, not per week. Make sure you put it per year. And then again, the rest of it, even tax allowance and all that, that is all completely optional. So I hope this video was helpful for you guys. This was how to create an employee. Oh yeah, by the way, once you're done, hit that save button at the top, and you created yourself an employee. So again, please smash that like button and stay tuned to the next video. See you guys.